Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're exploring a truly fascinating intersection. We're going to take a deep dive into our body's master biological regulatory system, but we're going to look at it through a slightly different lens, alongside ancient traditions of spiritual expression. We're talking about the neuroendocrine thyroid axis.
Now, I want you to just think about this for a second. What if your unexplained fatigue, that sluggish metabolism you just can't seem to shake, or that constant brain fog, what if all of that could literally be tied to an emotional inability to speak your truth? It sounds totally radical, right? But as we'll see today, the line between our physical glands and our emotional voice is actually incredibly thin.
To really understand this, we need to look at the neuroendocrine thyroid axis. Basically, this is the master regulatory system where your nervous and endocrine systems actually intersect. And they do this to control your metabolism, your growth, and your overall development. So in today's explainer, we're going to bridge Western biology and Eastern esoteric traditions to reveal exactly how your internal states ultimately dictate your physical health. Okay, let's dive into this. Lens 1, the biological machine.
Think of your body as an incredibly complex factory with a very strict chain of command. Right at the top, the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland act as the ultimate master regulators in your brain. The hypothalamus releases a hormone called TRH. That's essentially a memo to the pituitary gland telling it to secrete TSH, or thyroid-stimulating hormone. And then, that TSH travels all the way down to the thyroid gland in your neck, giving it the ultimate green light to get to work.
Let's break down the actual steps of this biological factory. The hypothalamus is constantly acting as a sensor. When it senses that your hormone levels are low, it fires off that TRH signal. The pituitary then shouts the order down the line with TSH. And finally, the thyroid gland hits the assembly line. But to make its primary product, a hormone called T4, it absolutely needs raw materials. The absolute most critical of those is iodine. In fact, a whopping 65% of T4's total weight is literally just iodine. But here's where the plot thickens. The thyroid mainly produces T4, but T4 actually isn't what your body uses for energy. It has to be converted into T3 first. So the crucial takeaway here is the massive difference between these two hormones. We've got T4, thyroxine. You can think of this as an inactive storage hormone. It's packaged, it's ready to go, but it doesn't really do much on its own. Then you've got T3, triiodothyronine. This is the active form. The sources we're looking at actually describe T3 as biological rocket fuel, literally rocket fuel. When T4 is finally converted into T3, that T3 enters your cells and triggers the production of massive amounts of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. That is the literal energy currency of your body that rejuvenates your entire system. Put simply, if you don't convert T4 to T3, you are not getting that rocket fuel.
Now let's shift gears a bit. Lens 2, the esoteric interface. The yogic chakra system actually maps this entire biological process out brilliantly. For thousands of years, yogis have described these swirling centers of subtle energy throughout the body. And what's wild is the direct anatomical overlap with the exact glands we just talked about. The crown chakra at the top of the head, that corresponds directly to the pineal gland. The third eye chakra in the center of the forehead links right to the pituitary gland, our master regulator. And the throat chakra maps perfectly onto the thyroid gland.
Let's really punch in on that throat chakra, which is known in Sanskrit as Vishuddha. In these esoteric models, this specific energy center is the absolute core of communication, self-expression, and speaking your truth. It's basically the filtering point where your internal reality gets expressed to the outside world. And the idea here is that if you are unable to express yourself, this energy center literally becomes blocked. So let's bring it all together. The intersection where science meets expression. This brings us to a massive aha moment from the sources, a phenomenon identified as T3 caretaker silence. This is a specific dysfunction often seen in individuals and very frequently women, particularly those who spend almost all their energy caring for everybody else, who suffer in silence or constantly compromise their own needs. Because they are emotionally unable to speak up for themselves, their biological factory literally responds by halting the conversion of inactive T4 into active T3. So you might go to the doctor, get a standard blood test, and be told your T4 levels are totally normal. But because of this silence, you aren't actually making the T3 rocket fuel, which leaves your metabolism completely sluggish. Your unexpressed boundaries literally put the brakes on your cellular energy.
Okay, so what throws a wrench in this whole system? Modern disruptors in stress.
Unsurprisingly, chronic stress is a major culprit here. When you're constantly stressed out, your adrenal glands just pump out high levels of cortisol. Over time, this leads directly to adrenal fatigue. High cortisol essentially sends a panic signal to your entire body, basically screaming, "Conditions are bad right now, we need to conserve energy just to survive." And how does the body conserve energy? It intentionally suppresses the thyroid. It literally makes your cells less responsive to thyroid hormones, which directly causes that fatigue, that weight gain, and that awful brain fog.
Let's look at how these modern stressors hit both our biological and esoteric targets at the same time. Chronic cortisol doesn't just lower T3, it actually creates something called reverse T3, or RT3. Think of RT3 as a literal biological brake pedal. It occupies your cellular receptors so the active T3 can't even get in. Esoterically, this completely blocks the energy flow to the throat. Then we have environmental disruptors. Artificial 60 Hz electromagnetic fields, from all our electronics, have been shown to perturb the pineal gland's production of melatonin. Add in the constant blue light from our screens every night, and we suffer from what the sources call a darkness deficiency. Biologically, high melatonin is absolutely needed to facilitate that T4 to T3 conversion. And esoterically, a disrupted pineal gland stunts the crown chakra, preventing higher states of consciousness and deep physical restoration.
But it's not all doom and gloom. The sources also give us actionable solutions to bridge both of these worlds. Biologically, you need to provide the right raw materials: iodine from sea vegetables, selenium from things like Brazil nuts, along with plenty of magnesium and calcium. Environmentally, you've got to cure that darkness deficiency, reduce your blue light at night, and literally sunset your home lighting by dimming everything to naturally trigger your melatonin production. Esoterically, you actually have to practice speaking your truth and setting firm boundaries to finally cure that T3 caretaker silence. And from a yogic perspective, you can stimulate this entire axis through specific postures like Sarvangasana, the shoulder stand, or by chanting the throat chakra's specific seed mantra, the sound ham. The big takeaway here is that holistic health requires both physical nutrients and emotional boundaries. So I really want to leave you with this final thought. We've seen how incredibly interconnected the physical and the spiritual really are within this neuroendocrine thyroid axis. It's practically a mirror. So ask yourself, are you truly giving your body the raw nutrients, the restorative darkness, and the authentic voice it needs to actually thrive? Really think about that. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you in the next explainer.